This program contains depictions of violence. Please be aware that this program also contains themes of suicide.
When I was on the run, Dina was psyching me up by saying, the mafia only want to kill us if you're alive. She was saying, if you committed suicide or pretend suicide, can we take photos?
You would fake committing suicide,
Yeah.
and then no one would be after you anymore.
There'd be a new identity for me to pick up because Lee Wyatt has killed himself. There's a special hangman's noose. You put it over your shoulders and arms, and you've got to be a very good actor to sort of make the disguise.
Did you ever feel like she was suggesting you should actually commit suicide?
Yeah. On quite a few occasions. I was her biggest problem because I'm still alive and I can fill in all the gaps.
You better stop the things you do. Because, yeah.
I remember I was sitting in my office and someone called Sean McDonald, who was a DC that I'd never met, walked in and he said, I've done some profiling of you and you worked on a lot of murders. And I said, I have. He said, I think you're pretty good at murder. I said, well, thank you. And he started talking about someone called Julian Webb. A few years earlier, Julian had unexpectedly died. His wife, Dina, straight away said that he committed suicide, but everybody took the view that this was a suspicious death. Sean and a lot of the officers felt that there was far more to this, and Sean gave me the files in the hope that I could further that view. Dina told the paramedics that Julian had died literally 15 minutes before the ambulance arrived, and yet when they went to move the body had rigor mortis. And that rang alarm bells because rigor mortis takes far longer than 15 minutes to set in. He died long before she told us that he died. And then we got the A&E doctor who thought Dina was faking her grief. Really, really unusual. Finally, I have never in my life heard of anybody claiming for a partner's money the day after an unexpected death. It was quite obvious there was more to this case than met the eye. And now Dina's first husband, Lee Wyatt, had reappeared. Lee had been missing for about 4 years, and he was accused of seriously assaulting Dina, and his disappearance appeared to be linked to that. He was arrested for benefit fraud using an alias of Colin Mitchell. There were quite a few things to talk to him about, and we were hoping that some light on what happened to Julian would be shed in the interview.
I've been living alone for 4 years on the run. Dina was living with Julian, and there I was, moving from place to place and sometimes living rough, really rough. And I was desperate and broken. I didn't tell anyone about the mafia because they'd think I'd mad. So that's the sort of thing you have to keep quiet. Told no one nothing. And for all those years, I hadn't seen my son, Darren, because Dean had told me it wasn't safe. I'd lost all perspective on truth and what was lies. I got the impression she's trying to make me mad. I was probably bordering on that non-sanity thing simply because of what I've gone through. I made these dozens of little notes. I would write things like, is Dina lying to me? And then another one saying, has all this story about Disney been a lie? Every time I spoke to her, I would say, how long is this going to keep on going on for? What's happening? I want answers. And that's when she said, Julian is dead. And I said, well, how is that? Why is that? And then she put the phone down on me. So obviously I was asking too many questions. Took a deep breath and I thought, so I'm not going to be a protection squad taking over the identity of Julian Webb. I tried to ring her again after that, but she wasn't picking up.
Did you think for even a moment that she might have killed him?
No. No, I didn't. I didn't think it was in her. A week later, she contacted me, and then that's when she strung up the thing about the States. You've got to get yourself over there with a passport. And she said, you'll see Darren. You'll see him in the hotel. She said we were going to be starting a new life together as a family unit. I said, at last. But she said it wasn't safe to travel together. So she said, I'll meet you over there. That's when the brain started ticking over, thinking there's something not quite right here. But I need to try and make a life, and I need to try and get my son back. So I went anyway. She came into the hotel room, and I'm thinking now we can have an embrace together. And straight away she would come out with, do you have any money? And I said, I've got no money. She wasn't happy with that at all. And I thought, this isn't right. And she said, I'll go back and I'll get Darren now. And I thought, what the hell is going on? I need to follow her when she leaves and see if she's telling the truth. I ducked out the rear entrance, climbed over a fence, and I saw her heading towards a young man. They kissed. And that's when it suddenly hit me like a ton of bricks. She's carrying on like I never existed. I feel sick. And I realised the whole thing was a sham. All these years, Lee, you've been manipulated and used. And everything has been a lie. I was thinking, I need to see the parents. I need to ask them questions. I've got no money. So I signed on at the job centre.
You signed on as?
As Colin Mitchell. And then I had a letter saying, can you come into the office? We believe there's something not quite right. And I said, right, game is up.
He had been sleeping rough, sleeping in bus shelters. He looked a bit dishevelled, should we say. But, you know, he's not got tattoos on his face or anything like that. He was just a very ordinary sort of looking bloke.
We'd suddenly got Lee Wyatt. I couldn't believe it. We knew that Lee and Dina were still married legally when Dina married Julian. And we knew Lee was at the house in Yapton about the time that Julian died. Dina accused Lee of stealing money, of breaking into her house, of assault. And we had this awful allegation of sexual assault against him. These are serious allegations. He would easily be facing 5 years or more in prison.
As soon as the door shut, I was frightened. I was shaking. I thought, well, what story do I tell? I did what I did because I thought I needed to save the lives of my son and Dina, but whether or not they would believe me, I don't know.
And I said, we're going to go through this from start to finish. So let's start at the beginning and take me through it.
Yeah. 86. That was probably the very start of it all. We had the first year together, which were quite wonderful, as in we were going places. And then Dina was pregnant. She said, this isn't right, this is uncomfortable. And the medical staff declared that the baby was dead.
How many weeks pregnant was she?
Oh, about 36 weeks. So it's like, you know, full term. Dina had to go through the motions of birth. Such was the exhaustion of doing it, Dina's heart stopped. I heard what we call the death throttle. The sister then ran out to get the machine to give her a shock. And I was shouting, don't do this to me. We've got a life together. We whacked her in the heart. And then there was a big deep breath that came from her. The sister rushed in and said, she's alive, she's all right. The baby came out. And I remember saying, it is our child, our baby, just to say goodbye to it. The name was Louise Amanda Wyatt, and that would be my initials. So it was a part of me dying with her. Yeah. I wanted to pick up the baby, and she wouldn't allow it. She was just saying, don't look at it, don't touch it. I never once touched the baby, and nor did she. And I didn't touch Louise because I didn't want to upset Dina.
Did something change that day?
Yeah. That to me was a moment where Dina died. And I honestly to God think Dina came back as truly another person. Everyone gave Dina the sympathies, and quite rightly so, but she just carried on as normal, as if nothing had happened. And within weeks, she insisted she had to get pregnant again. So we did that, and Darren was obviously on his way. Darren, he was £6'7" when he was born. But it took 5 days for him before he could come out, because he became a blue baby. So he got put into an oxygen box tank. And I'm thinking, I can't believe this is happening again. From that point onwards, I became fearful that I was going to lose him too.
I think what Lee went through made him feel vulnerable.
Do you think that Darren was used as a way of controlling Lee?
Oh, yeah. In that sort of situation. It's currency.
How soon after Darren was born did Dina tell you about the mafia?
It's got to be within weeks. He was a little baby. I believed that the Irish mafia wanted to kill all of us. This was hitmen, and Dina said there was a price on my head, £100,000. They wanted all the money from the cuddly toy business, from the rights to Shaun the Leprechaun.
But you must have said to her, what do you mean, the mafia? Like, what was your reaction?
Yeah. Well, I had heard of stories like the Irish Mafia before. When I heard Irish Mafia, I just assumed in the IRA. At the time, there was a war of the IRA against people on the mainland. And the day we got married, the Grand Hotel in Brighton got bombed. And I just thought, this is a dangerous organisation. I was frightened.
It's quite hard to imagine. There are numerous people out there trying to kill your newborn baby,
Yep.
your wife, yourself.
Yep. And you're always looking at someone as, well, are they the enemy or are they a good person? Sounds crazy, but every time we came out of the house, I would go through the standard security check, looking under the cars for bombs. I kept track of the number plates in the back of the rearview mirror. I would write it down on a little notepad to see if I had the same number plate following me. Every time we went out, I did fear for our lives every hour of every day.
It's such a crazy story. It's extremely hard to believe, but you validate a lot of what he said happened.
Yeah. How do you manage to isolate somebody that effectively, and where does the drive come from to want to do that to another human being? But by that point, he is completely controlled by Dina. And we had no idea. Dina struck me as being a very well-balanced, perfectly normal human being. Dina was contacting my Auntie Jean with phone calls. Very, very odd visit without Lee. And there was the constant blaming of Lee being the one that didn't want anything to do with his mother or the family. And she was the innocent one doing her best to communicate. When you're only given one side of the information, what do you believe? There was no reason not to believe her at all.
Dina had said that my mother and family had been infiltrated by the mafia, and that's why contact ceased from me. And I believed her. Within 2 years, I'd lost my grandfather, my father, and then I had the stillborn of Louise. And together with her bringing up these stories of all the mafia, that was just juggling about in my brain. Perhaps I was having a mental breakdown, not just that particular minute, that week, but just gradually building up.
Lee I saw as being a strong, well-adjusted person. Successful, knew his own mind, knew what he wanted out of life, and he absolutely got torn apart by somebody's manipulation.
I absolutely couldn't believe the story I was hearing. You think this can't have happened.
You have to unravel all the stories that are there, and they're so intertwined and so difficult to unravel.
I thought, well, are they against me or are they with me? I had a lot to tell them. I'm the victim of her lies.
Nobody had had any contact with Lee whatsoever. He was just a ghost. Just a ghost. Lee was an only child, and he was very, very dear to his parents. You know, I was angry at the time. And in my naivety, I just thought, I'm going to go and find Lee and have a go. And I'm going to find out why he's not talking to his mother. I drove down a very long lane to get to their house. And nobody was more surprised than Dina when she opened that door and I was stood there. And she told me Lee was away and he wouldn't be back. So I might as well go.
Away where?
Didn't elaborate on that at all.
Dina told me, just hide. I was just huddled up in the corner so that I wouldn't be acknowledging myself to him.
Why did you accept what Dina said, that Lee wasn't there? Did you not feel like you wanted to have a look around inside? And
That's... I should have done. But at that point we had no reason to disbelieve that wasn't the case. You know, we weren't privy to what was effectively the psychological warfare that was going on aimed at Lee. Lee was part of a journey for Dina. I think she was learning how to control people to the extent that she controlled Lee. And then what she did post that became the murderess.
By then, Dina didn't really talk about Lee. I guess I didn't really ask. I knew that Lee had assaulted her, but I didn't know anything else. Lee was definitely out of the picture. And all of a sudden, she's talking about someone called Julian. Suddenly, she was Julian's partner. I think this one day, I remember being in the front room. I look out the window, and it's Dina, and this person walking down. Hello, this is Julian. Oh, hello, pleased to meet you. It kind of didn't make sense. But it wasn't like, she didn't say, oh, I'm having an affair, which should, you know, that's what would be classed at in theory. And it was like, suddenly they were married. I've never seen two people that would be so different. But it was very much, to me, that she was in charge.
Her father said, Dina's just married. Some chap. And I said, what do you mean married? What married? She can't marry. She said, I'm married. There's no divorce. She'd told her parents that we were in the proceeds of divorcing one another, but it wasn't true. She married him bigously. She actually put on the marriage certificate, spinster. At the time, I thought it was just part of this plan to protect us. A week before Dina married Julian, she said to me, you have to be on the run without us. And she told me I couldn't stay as Lee Wyatt. I had to have another identity. It felt like I was an undercover operative. So I'd read a couple of books. There was the Day of the Jackal, I think it was. This guy was going through the French countryside, killing all manner of people, taking cars and money. So I pulled out a map of the UK and I quite literally hovered my arm and a finger and a pencil around this. I spun myself in a circle to make myself giddy, and the first bit I hit was Newquay. Wasn't quite on Newquay. It was near Newquay.
In those days, the amusement arcades were in their heyday. So it would be pushers and things like that. And then the cranes, which was the grabbers. You pick it up and win every time. Simple. No. What we used to do is take the weight of the toy, hold it in there, and then just ease it off so that basically the grab would do that. One day, a person walked through the front door, long hair and a beard, asked if there's any employment available. I offered him a job fixing machines. I asked him his name, he said he was Colin. Colin Mitchell.
Hi, I'm Colin Mitchell.
So who was Colin Mitchell?
Well, he's someone that worked in the hotel trade, and I probably used to see him every day.
So you knew him?
So I knew him, yeah.
And you stole his name?
And I used his name, managed to get a passport in the name of Colin John Mitchell.
How did you do that?
I just applied for it. It's funny because there was a film on called The Fugitive, and I saw that at the cinema, and I thought, God, is that me? I'm not going to be jumping off of rivers and helicopters and stuff like that, but that's how I felt.
And I'd say, Colin, can you do this? Basically, you wouldn't answer to Colin. Now I know why, yes. Yeah, because he wasn't called Colin.
I was waiting for the threat of the mafia to be gone. Leaving your son behind, obviously, that was quite horrific. So my trust was in Julian and his mates, the protection squad, to look after them too. And Dina always said, yeah, they're doing their jobs. They're looking after us. They're arresting the hitmen, according to her. Well, it turns out Julian became a stepfather sort of thing as a substitute dad. He probably behaved quite well to him. But I'm not to know that because no one ever told me anything.
Lee hasn't seen his son for years because of Dina. For a parent to leave their child, this is very extreme action. This is not normal behaviour. I realised what we were looking at was a really controlling relationship. Coercion starts with very small control, like I'll answer the phone, I'll open the door. A month later, it's I'll access our joint bank account. And the scary nature of coercion is that often the person being controlled doesn't realise it. But it was a complex story, and we had this awful allegation of sexual assault against Lee that we had to put to him.
Roses are red, violence is black. You need our sharpening as a payback.
It's not good. My hands were shaking, my feet were shaking, and I admit to them that I did make that call. She said, you have to make a phone call where you're slagging me off. Then I questioned, and then she said, don't give up on Darren. I said, I'm not giving up on Darren, but you are. You're asking all these questions, and this is this twist that she does. Then I read the sexual assault statement, which she signed. She set me up with a crime I haven't committed. I knew this was serious. And that's when it all came to me. I asked, what date did she say this happened? He gave me the date. It's impossible. I was in Cornwall working on that day, and the detectives looked at each other and they left the room.
Did you attack or abuse Dina?
Not then, and in no other times, whatever. So that wasn't me. That was her mental state. She's just on another level.
I called his old boss, and Lee's alibi checked out. He was 200 miles away when the incidents that she's saying were happening in Yapton when he was working in Cornwall.
Worryingly, she got Lee Wyatt to incriminate himself in numerous offences that he hadn't committed, purely because she coerced him into doing it.
I loved her that much that I would have done anything for her. Love does make you do crazy things.
This had all been fabricated by Dina. He was never charged with any offences.
Full credit and marks to them. Because they believed in an innocent man.
I'd never heard of a case as extreme as Lee Wyatt. It was mind-numbing what she did to him. By the end of the interview, I don't think any of us thought that he was in any way connected to the death of Gillian Webb. The way Dina set up Lee Wyatt took a lot of intelligence, took a lot of thought, a lot of planning, premeditation. But we couldn't charge Dina with anything, because at that time, coercive control wasn't a crime. She got away with it, and the damage caused was horrendous.
Of course, I tried to get custody, but the family court judge took her word rather than mine. What she's done isn't against the law, and the police would not help. It's like a civil matter rather than a law enforcement thing. I think Darren has always lived with his grandmother, Dina's mother, Margaret. I got the impression he's been taught the father is the devil. So he's been brainwashed. Of course he has. I wanted a life together with my son. But I hadn't seen Darren for 3 or 4 years. When I left, all I could say is, "Oh, Daddy will see you again soon." But I never saw him after that. I remember sending things for his birthday. It was all sent back to me. I've never known what he's done in his life, how he got on at school. Darren is the greatest loss of my life.
I was frustrated that we hadn't got a charge. Dina completely destroyed Lee's life, and Julian Webb had been found dead. There is a killer out there, and I was definitely worried. I just knew something else was going to happen. I have no doubt that she will be looking to meet more victims, and that's what concerns me the greatest. In August of 1995, a man walks into the police station at Worthing and states that he is a victim of Dina as well, and his name is Rob Waite. Dina had mentioned his name several times, blaming him for all kinds of thefts and things, and I thought it was just another made-up name that she'd come up with. But this guy has arrived to tell me he has been coerced to go to America with Dina. And the date that he was there was exactly the same as when Lee met Dina at a hotel. He then followed her back to where she was with a guy. That was Rob Waite. Alarm bells go off straight away. Dina told him that she's dying from cancer and she wanted to go to America for the last 3 months of her life. So he had agreed to take all the money that he could, and they went to Florida. And I sat there open-mouthed. Dina's told Rob the same fabricated story that she'd told Julian. They had ended up doing moonlight flits from these hotels, motels, and taking anything that they could sort of grab before they left because people were after them. And then Rob told us that she administered something to him in the hotel. He felt a sharp pain in his upper thigh. He believed that she was administering insulin. Dina then went back to England and had abandoned him in America. He had no money, no clothes. All he had with him really was his passport and few pennies. And now I'm thinking, could this be what happened to Julian Webb? Was he injected with insulin as well? We're truly shocked by what is going on, that this is her pattern of behaviour. And I realised that we had something much more serious going on here.
Now you've got 3 victims. Can you take action?
At that point, no, there was nothing else we could do to arrest Dina, because We had no proof that she had injected Rob. I kept trying to push people to see if there was anything else, because I think everybody had begun to think there may be other victims here. But then the case went quiet.
On the 1st of January 2000, there I am on the floor, feet tied, hands tied, and I'm thinking, this is uncomfortable. And she said, I'd just like to tie you up and we'll have some fun. And she put a towel over my face. She goes, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah, I can hear you. Bang! A bright flash goes off in your head. It's like someone firing a flash gun in your eyes. Bang! Again. So hard, impact split my head up both sides. I didn't even know I'd been stabbed. Honestly, I just couldn't take it in. What, your wife just tried to kill you? There was so much blood. It was all over the floor. To her horror, I sat up. I'm literally fighting for my life. I pinned her on the floor. She dropped the knife. And I said to her, what on earth are you doing? And she said, it's all been a lie. All been a lie. There was nothing else said. So, she calls her parents. After about 2.5 hours, her parents turned up. Her mother walks in. First thing she said, Dina, what have you done this time? Her father took me to hospital to get me stitched up. I was laying in a hospital bed. I could see 2 policemen attending another incident. I was trying to get their attention, but her father pulled the curtains. He wouldn't let me. When we got back to the house, Dina had packed some basic stuff. I just assumed she was going off with her parents. And I'm trying to work it all out. I could still hear the ringing of this baseball bat in my head. I really wanted to go to sleep. The pain was incredible. And then I noticed that all the blood had been cleared up. Her mother had cleaned it up. And then they left. They drove her back to Devon.
So I'm in the DS's office, tells me to take a seat, and we're going to talk about a job that's been pulled in the day before. Richard Thompson says he has been assaulted by his wife, and her name is Dina Thompson. I just went, fuck! Dina Thompson was also Dina Webb and Dina Wyatt. I thought, this can't be happening again. Immediately, police officers were sent to the address. But because Richard had waited so long to contact us, it had been 3 days since the alleged attack. We were playing catch-up. By the time we get to do the bathroom, Richard told us, Mum has already cleaned up all the blood that's in there. He would never clean a scene ever like that, ever, and somebody had.
This is a crime scene. The man nearly died. It stretches belief. We'd lost a lot of evidence. The golden hour, as we call it, had been and gone. The logical person would dial 999. Richard had wasted 3 days and allowed the scene to be destroyed. Unbelievable.
Not only have we lost all the evidence that could give us clear proof of what had happened, we had another problem. Richard doesn't want to press charges. I was shocked.
I was in a real dilemma because if he didn't want to prosecute, Dina could go off again and do this to someone else. This woman is out there and she could do it again. She's dangerous.
If you have been affected by any of the issues raised in this programme, help is available online at sky.com/viewer support.
The incident room is the heart of any major police inquiry.
I am going to leave absolutely no stone unturned.
Vicious attack, stabbed multiple times. He doesn't stand a chance.
A place where evidence is gathered.
Yeah, I saw the car, I saw the gun.
We had DNA, we had blood at the scene. The evidence was overwhelming.
Suspects identified.
In my view, he was the last person to see Jayden alive.
Coming after them, we're now on a manhunt.
Keep your hands out, alright? I've got a taser, okay?
Murderers interrogated.
I'll be honest with you, I don't give where she is.
He's involved not only in her disappearance but her murder as well.
And cold-blooded killers brought to justice.
£1,500 to travel from Manchester to shoot somebody dead.
This is Murder Scene, the incident room. Tonight.
Police emergency. Hello caller, what's your location? What's happening?
A drive-by shooting in broad daylight.
I saw the car, I saw the gun.
And an innocent passerby caught in the crossfire.
And then they came back. They started shooting.
Gunshots that launched one of the biggest manhunts for years.
My name is Andy Cribbin. I was Detective Superintendent in Lancashire Police and I've been a homicide SIO for 8 years. This is our victim, Aya Hashem. She's a 19-year-old woman and she's shot dead on King Street in Blackburn. She's a completely innocent victim. She'd just gone out to get some shopping for the family and she never came home. This is the most complex investigation I've ever worked on. It's a case I think that will stay with all of us who worked on it. It's just one of those moments where everything conspired against Aya. It could have been any of us who were out walking the street that day.
It's a Category A murder. The incident room has more than 200 detectives and specialist support staff.
We will leave no stone unturned. We will do whatever it takes, whatever we have to do to identify who's been involved in killing Aya. It's vital that we get detectives and police officers out there conducting the inquiries. The longer time goes on, the greater the risk is for evidence to be lost and disposed of.
Police rapid response teams flood the area around Quickshine, a tyre shop and car wash on King Street on the edge of Blackburn town centre. DCI Zoe Russo is Andy's second in command.
Blackburn's not the type of place where this kind of incident happens. Certainly not during broad daylight, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. King Street is a very busy route. There's lots of businesses that adorn either side of the street. It's a thoroughfare to get into the town centre and out.
With very little information at the start, detectives must keep an open mind to motive and why Aya was the one who was shot.
Was this a targeted attack? Was this an attack on somebody else? These are the questions that come into the mind, so it's absolutely crucial that we have to ensure that we get these decisions right and we act fast.
One of the first things police need to do is assign a family liaison officer to find out who the victim was and why she was in the area at the time. They need to break the news to Aya's family.
The policemen, they come and they told us what's up. I start to scream. I fell down on the floor. We didn't believe what's happened. Only it took 5 minutes. 5 minutes and she left us.
But nothing about Aya's background or movements points to anything suspicious. She was a 19-year-old law student. The family had moved here from Lebanon 10 years before in search of safety.
I was at home. It was during Ramadan. I called her from her room. She wake up early. Can you please go to bring me some stuff? And she said, yes, I will go. She sat on the stairs, wear her shoes. And shut the door and she went to Lidl. She didn't come back.
Back in the incident room, SIO Andy Cribbin is exploring what significant insight the initial 999 call can offer.
It happened, basically, I saw the car, I saw the gun, they went fast first, and then they came back, they shoot. They're holding the gun on me, like, you know, when they came around, I said, what? And they start shooting on me. She was just walking around. She was walking, she was going to go somewhere, I think.
So you think that they were shooting at you initially and then caught her instead?
It's unusual, but you've got somebody there ringing up saying, actually, I've just been shot at, I've watched them, they tried to kill me. As an investigator, I'm thinking about, well, actually, how does he know that they're actually aiming for them? Is he still at risk because the gunmen are out there? We've got to look after him, we've got to protect him. He's a key witness, we want to get detectives to speak to him and understand what's gone on. Why does he think he's the target?
Police gather CCTV material from Quickshine Tyres and other businesses on King Street, revealing that Aya's murder was caught on camera. The whole event captured in broad daylight from multiple angles. It shows staff going about their day with no sense of the drama that is about to unfold.
Pasha Khan is one of the first people to react. He jumps over a fence and he's going in there, and he's obviously straight onto the police trying to get help for Aya, and people are there trying to save Aya's life.
It's now clear the witness statement taken by Pasha Khan, the owner of Quickshine Tyres, is reliable. While the gunman and driver are still at loose, police need to keep him protected. The murder of Aya was a targeted drive-by shooting, but she was not the intended victim. And crucially, police can now identify the car used in the shooting. A silver Toyota Avensis.
The real priority for us now is where is that car. It's really key to get as many officers as we can into the area to flood the streets and identify where is the Avensis now.
A 19-year-old woman has been shot dead in broad daylight on King Street in Blackburn.
A full cordon has taken place and the road is unlikely to be reopened for several hours.
Police are trawling all CCTV records in the area.
19-year-old student Aya Hashim was caught in the crossfire of a drive-by shooting in broad daylight in Blackburn. She was just walking to the shops. Murder detectives and uniformed police have flooded the street around Quickshine Tyres, quickly searching for any evidence that could help explain why Aya was shot and killed. The whole event has been filmed on multiple CCTV cameras, including the shots being fired. In the incident room, SIO Andy Cribbin is briefing officers on what early CCTV evidence reveals.
There were 2 shots fired. That's the first shot that missed. The circle on the left-hand side, the white circle, that's the glass from the impact of the first round that hit Quickshine. You can also see there Aya on the right-hand side just walking along the pavement there as she steps out into the road. Just as the Avensis is passing Aya on the street, so you can see her there just to the right of the telegraph pole, and this is just literally a split second before Aya is shot. This is the telegraph pole there, and you can see the markings where the round was embedded after Aya had been shot. It's key now for us to identify who was in the car at the time, so who was the gunman and who was the driver within the vehicle. We know from witnesses and we know from CCTV that there were 2 people in there. The driver in the front and the gunman was in the back of the Avensis, so it's absolutely critical we identify who they are.
All police officers in the area are drafted in to search for the Toyota Avensis used by the shooter. And it's not long before a police dog handler finds it abandoned nearby.
Control to any ARV that can attend Wellington Road to assist a colleague with a found vehicle at the Toyota Avensis.
Yeah, no one attempt on that. We deployed 9-1 and 9-6 should be together.
Received.
This is Wellington Road. It's out of the way of the main arterial route into Blackburn. Perfect spot to abandon the Avensis for the getaway car. So clearly they've planned this route and to leave the Avensis here in the car park. What we'd normally find in a crime such as this is it would be usually burnt out, but I don't think there's been an opportunity to do that. So that is going to open up a lot of forensic inquiries for us within that vehicle.
is seized and examined by forensic teams.
We're looking for DNA, we're looking for fingerprints, we're looking for anything in that vehicle that the offenders may have touched. We're also looking for gunshot residue, because that's the vehicle we believe was used in the shooting.
The forensic teams do better than that. In the back seat, they discover a bullet, discarded by apparently careless killers. This is the car used in the shooting.
So even though this is a small car park, you can see that this is a residential area. And what we will have in residential areas is CCTV. So there are a wealth of opportunities for us to recover evidence that will be really important for our investigation.
Aya's family fled Lebanon because of the threat of violence. They had no idea it would follow them to a town in Lancashire.
From 2011, we were living there in Blackburn. It looked like a safe place, and we come here to the UK because it's safe. Our country is not a safe place to us. We never thought like shooting and gun will be in the UK. But there is no safety there or anywhere.
King Street is a bustling area with many businesses. And the shooting was witnessed by many people on that busy Sunday afternoon. Next door to Quickshine, the scene of Aya's murder, is another tyre shop, RI Tyres. And detectives make an astonishing discovery. It appears there is a history of bad blood between these neighbouring businesses.
So I'm learning more now about the feud that's gone on between these two companies. Quickshine used to be a car wash company that then started selling tyres, which upset RI Tyres. And there have been fallouts between the staff there.
On several occasions over a year, reports were made to police about workers shouting at customers using the rival's business, squaring up to each other, and on one occasion, throwing scrap metal at each other's garages.
The local naval policing team had made attempts to try and resolve it. There was talk about trying to put up some sort of barrier, a wall or something in between the two properties, but neither side would allow each other to do it, and there was arguments over who would pay for it. So that wasn't going to work. So it was simmering in the background within it. Nothing to suggest that it would ever escalate to a drive-by shooting trying to kill somebody.
RI Tyres is run by Feroz Suleiman.
We're looking on the intelligence database to see what his background in and what level of criminality he's been involved in. We start to understand that he's got a YouTube channel that he uses. He puts videos out there.
How you doing, guys? We're back again with our second vlog.
While background checks on Feroz Suleiman don't point to his involvement in the shooting, yet again, the CCTV taken from his own security cameras allow police to analyse his movements before, during, and after the shooting.
Feroz was at RI Tyres and he was on the forecourt. And when we look at the CCTV and we watch Feroz, you can see he's already looking at the events. When it turns up, he's looking, he's watching it, he's anticipating what's going to happen. And as soon as the shots take place, as say Pasha Khan, he's there, he runs over, he's straight over, he's dialing 999. Other people are dialing 999, they're shocked at what's gone on. Feroz is there, he's watching it, he doesn't ring an ambulance, he's anticipating it. You look and we would say he knows what's going to happen and he's waiting for those shots to be fired.
Under Understanding the feud and Faraz Suleiman's behaviour at the time of the shooting, Andy makes the decision to arrest him and other associates at RI Tyres.
There's enough there to justify us making an arrest. We've got the account of Pasha, we've got the dispute. It seems like a motive, even though it seems a wild motive, there's a motive there. So we've got grounds to arrest people, but we need to do it quickly. The longer we leave it, the more chance there is of evidence being lost, particularly if one of them may be the gunman. We're looking at firearm residue, we're looking at seizing their clothing. We're also looking to secure their phones. Telephony is key on these early arrests, so who have they been in contact with at the time of the murder, who they've been in contact with before the murder, and also since the murder. So we're looking for these key connections. Who else is involved? We know Faraz can't be the gunman because he's there on camera at the time of the actual murder itself.
Faraz Suleiman is taken into custody, and in the incident room, the team begins planning his interrogation.
He was calm, he was compliant, seemed a bit surprised, I think, but didn't cause any issues for the officers arresting him. One of the key things we want to find out, look, if you're involved, tell us, but if you're not involved, equally tell us. We're there to prove or disprove your involvement. He's been very vague, non-committal and quite cagey, not really answering questions properly. But equally, he's not telling us anything to show he's not involved. Not wanting to go into any great detail, and we'll say, I can't remember, or I'm not too sure, or I was in work. I think at the moment he's thinking we haven't got that much on him, so he's thinking actually he doesn't really need to say that much, he doesn't need to work hard with what he's telling us. The clock is ticking, the pressure's on. You've either got to charge them or release them.
Suleiman is put into a cell, and the detectives focus on finding the two men who were in the Avensis when Aya was murdered. And there's been a huge breakthrough, with the team trawling through hours and hours of CCTV footage. From doorbells, dash cams, and even buses.
We can track people's movements, we can understand what's happened, who's involved, and their locations. We had CCTV from RI Tyres, but once we recovered the Avensis, that was the start of new CCTV parameters. We can see the Avensis driving past and having taken a shot. The Avensis has driven off back up King Street, heading in the direction away from the town centre and RI Tyres. And it's now making its way back through some of the side streets of Blackburn.
And the footage seized appears to show a planned getaway.
The Avensis now turned right, now making its way onto Wellington Road. And then we see now we're on Wellington Road. There's a figure that's just got out of the Avensis that appears to be from the rear of the Avensis, has now got into a waiting vehicle at the top of Wellington Road. It's quite difficult from this footage to make out the vehicle and the registration. But what we can see is that there's potentially another person in that vehicle. You now see the second person from the Avensis getting into that vehicle.
That vehicle is a blue Ford Fiesta. It's taking the gunman and the driver of the Avensis away from the scene. It's a new lead for detectives.
The opportunity of following the blue Fiesta is huge. We need to know where was it before the murder, where was it after the murder. And the reality is, on cases like this, we've no idea.
police arrest operation is underway in connection with the drive-by shooting on the 17th of May on King Street.
Police are still urging any witnesses to come forward with information.
The family of Aya Hashem are planning to take her body back to Lebanon for burial.
Detectives are piecing together the evidence to understand how 19-year-old Aya Hashem was shot and killed on a busy street in Blackburn. They already have Faraz Solomon in custody, charged with murder and attempted murder, but need to prove he is connected to the gunman and driver of the Toyota Avensis used in the drive-by shooting. Now, a new vehicle, a blue Ford Fiesta, is in their sights.
We found CCTV footage from Wellington Road. And what that shows us is that after the murder, the Avensis comes back up, it pulls up on the street, and the gunman gets out of the car, gets out of the Avensis and gets into a blue Fiesta, and he gets into the back of the Fiesta. We then see the Avensis parked up near to the Fiesta, and we can see that the driver of the Avensis gets into the front passenger seat of the Fiesta. So it's a real breakthrough. But where did it go after the murder has taken place?
CCTV is absolutely key for us now to follow that blue Fiesta. We need to understand exactly where that vehicle has now gone, identify the movements from CCTV, from ANPR. That will lead us to the gunman, the driver, and those involved. You have to knock on all the doors to identify that you've got the CCTV, and then when the CCTV identifies the next movement of the vehicle, you then have to move to a next set of parameters and carry out the same kind of work. It is very, very labour intensive, but it's key, because that is the way that we are going to identify where the Fiesta has gone, and it's going to take us to the gunman and the driver.
CCTV officers trawl the movements both in the run-up to and after the murder. But it's on the trawl, finding where the Fiesta came from, that detectives uncover critical new evidence.
Every time the Fiesta gets to a junction, we have to move the CCTV parameters onto the next street. And in this case, we've started in Blackburn, and we've now had to make our way over to Bolton.
We've identified the registration number of the Fiesta, and we've also identified who was driving it at the time, which is Judith Chapman and Uthman Satia. They're the owner of the Fiesta, and they were driving it before the murder and after the murder. Judith had reported the Fiesta as stolen to the police, but we know that's rubbish. We can prove that she was actually driving it at the time she said it was stolen.
A CCTV trawl of a residential area of Bolton shows Judith Chapman and Uthman Satia's blue Fiesta pull up on a quiet street before two other individuals get into the car.
This is exactly what we're looking for. This is the footage that shows two men getting into the Fiesta, and we know they are the gunman and the driver who committed the murder. And whilst we don't know who they are, the footage, the images are so good, we know we'll be able to identify them from it. We now need to find out where they are and arrest them.
While teams continue to work to identify the gunman and the driver, Aya's body is flown back to Lebanon for burial.
In our religion, to honor a person's death, we have a saying that we were made out of clay, and we're gonna be returned to that state. remember how good of a sister she was and what was taken from us. I know the anger inside me just grows bigger and bigger. Just took a beautiful person away from not just us, the world, to be honest. She had so much potential.
She was studying international law, and her dream to be like a lawyer to help others. She studied very hard through the years, especially the last year of her life.
The CCTV is shared with the intelligence units of other police forces across the Northwest. It's not long before there's a name for one of the suspects.
We've sent it to Manchester and it pays dividends because they identify Anthony Ennis as being one of the males getting into the car.
Ennis is a known criminal from Manchester. He already has convictions for handling stolen vehicles, arson and possession of weapons. The task now is to identify other suspects and find evidence which will prove there was a conspiracy to murder Pasha Khan, which also resulted in the killing of Aya Hashim. They must prove that Faraz Suleiman was somehow involved.
Faraz Suleiman is in custody, he's been interviewed, his house has been searched, and his phone is being reviewed. Who has he been in contact with before and after the murder? Is there a connection between Faraz and the Avensis? Is there a connection between Faraz and the people within that fiesta?
Telephony is so important within investigations. We're able to find out contacts within that phone, but also we can carry out what we call subscriber checks to find out who people have been contacting.
Detectives identify subscribers to almost every mobile phone number that has been in contact with Faraz Suleiman.
We've got Faraz Suleiman talking to a number of associates that we've seen on the CCTV, and there's one particular associate who's in contact with a mobile number that we can't attribute at this time.
Detectives use the last 4 digits of a phone number as a reference when they don't have a subscriber. The unknown subscriber is 8343.
We need to understand who that belongs to, where that SIM card was purchased from.
Police contact the phone company to find out where the SIM card was purchased. It was bought from a supermarket in Stockport.
We've got CCTV footage of a male buying the top-up card for that phone prior to the murder. And then before we know it, we get further information from Greater Manchester Police that tells us that this male is Samir Raja. He's very well known, he's an active criminal and a very violent male.
Raja already has a string of convictions for drugs, theft and violence. The team can now use cell sites to trace 8343 and learn the movements of Raja and the contacts that interacted with that phone.
We've looked at the cell sighting, where it is, where it goes to sleep at night, where it is, who is it contacting, and people that are connected to Raja.
And that cell site evidence proves Samir Raja and Faraz Suleiman are directly connected to each other.
We know they were talking to each other before Aya's murder. We know they were sending messages. We know they were meeting each other before the murder because of the cell sighting. And we know just after the murder, 8343 switches off and is never used again.
Detectives must find the location of Ennis and Raja as soon as possible.
We're coming after them. We're now on a manhunt.
Police are on the hunt for the two men they believe are directly responsible for the murder of 19-year-old Aya Hashem.
The gunman and driver involved in Aya Hashem's murder have fled the country.
Police have contacted authorities in Portugal and Spain to try to locate the fugitives.
Extensive CCTV trawls and vehicle tracking have finally identified the gunman and the driver involved in the shooting of 19-year-old Aya Hashem. But there's now a new threat to the whole investigation. They have both been traced leaving the UK.
So we've got our gunman, we've got our driver, but they know we're onto them because they've fled the country. Raja and Ennis are out of our jurisdiction. So how do we get them there? We need to do it quickly because we've got other people who are charged. We can't send police officers out there to arrest them, we haven't got the powers. So again, it's trying to identify where are they and how do we get them back.
The challenge that we have now is we need to identify exactly where Zamir Raja and Anthony Ennis are. But if they move on to other countries, it will be quite difficult to not only track the movements, but actually extradite them back to the UK. So really the race is on for us now to identify where they are and arrest them and bring them back as soon as we can. It could actually take us years. If we don't locate them as soon as possible and they move on from Portugal to other countries where we don't have those extradition rights.
Getting a European arrest warrant causes a huge headache for the team, but Interpol are soon on their tail. They've moved across to Spain. But the team have a stroke of luck. Just 2.5 weeks after the murder, Zamir Raja, the man police believe actually shot Aya Hashem, reappears on their radar.
Through inquiries with law enforcement abroad, we know that he hired a Portuguese hire car. He's travelled back to the UK in that vehicle. He came back into the country on his own accord.
So back in the UK, could he get access to a firearm again? Could he try and go after Pasha Khan? Could he go after other witnesses? We had some real concerns that he would be there. So again, it was important once he's back in the UK that we arrest him, and we arrest him on our terms.
At the point of identifying that Zamir Raja was back in the country, we know he's in London. We've enlisted the help of the Metropolitan Police.
Met police officers covertly track Raja's movements before finding the ideal place to strike. Euston Station.
Stay where you are, yeah? Keep your hands out, alright? I've got a taser, okay? Just stay where you are. Yeah. No.
So we have been able to see the arrest and the final moments of Zamir Raja being placed in handcuffs.
Hands behind your back, mate. Hands behind your back. What was that?
Attempt murder or murder?
Murder.
To actually get the gunman, to actually get the man that's pulled the trigger is very satisfying.
Hey, mind your head.
Just to the front, please.
Not now. We'll be at custody soon.
To get Raja arrested was great, a real relief.
But Anthony Ennis is still at large in Spain.
Trying to keep track of him in Spain, if he'd have disappeared from there. You're also very much reliant on Interpol and the Spanish police to track him down and arrest him. But to be fair to the Spanish police, they were exceptional on this case, and within 24 hours of the arrest warrant going live, they had him in custody for us.
Anthony Ennis, the driver of the Toyota Avensis, is finally behind bars. But if their evidence isn't strong enough, he could be let go almost as soon as he's arrested.
When he's brought back to the UK and comes into a police station, we have to charge him and put him before the court straight away, so we don't get the opportunity to interview him. We have to be in a position where the case is match fit and ready to go at court.
On the 17th of May 2021, exactly 1 year after Aya Hashim was murdered, Suleiman, Raja and Enis stand trial. All are charged with murder.
I attended the court, I saw them. I cried a lot, I can't breathe. But I didn't scream. I didn't say any wrong word because I felt like, I need to respect the people there, the judge, the people, the barristers.
It was a very long trial. Roger put a guilty plea in to manslaughter, and that really was the first time that he admitted to being the shooter, albeit he denied having an intention to murder.
Raja maintained he had only intended to scare Pasha Khan, not kill him. Feroz Suleiman denied involvement.
Suleiman tried to deflect any culpability. He showed no remorse in court. He didn't admit to anything. And even though the weight of evidence was against Feroz Suleiman, he still would not admit or show any remorse during any point of the court case.
What kind of vile beings are you? They were laughing in court. The families were laughing with them. What type of people are you? How can you be so disrespectful, so vile? How can you be so materialistic, fighting just because of money? And you've already got enough. You're already doing well in life. Why do all this?
When they set out to commit that murder, none of them thought about the risk of what they were doing. They were all happy to try and shoot and murder Pasha Khan. Anybody who's prepared to discuss and plan a murder. And then for Zamir Raja, he's somebody that is, for any sum of money, but for £1,500 to travel from Manchester to shoot somebody dead.
The jury decided Feroz Suleiman had masterminded the operation and was guilty of murder. He received 34 years. They also agreed Zamir Raja and Anthony Enis had intended to kill Pasha Khan after accepting a £1,500 fee. They received a minimum sentence of 34 and 33 years for murdering Aya Hashim.
Some people would say she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I completely disagree with that. She was doing what she should have been doing and what she should be able to do. They were in the wrong. She was completely innocent in this.
In total, 120 mobile phones were seized and 88,000 hours of CCTV footage were trawled through in the investigation. It led not just to the convictions of Suleiman, Raja and Enis, but a further 4 men were found guilty of murder for their part in the conspiracy. From the man who purchased the Avensis to use in the drive-by shooting, to the man who jump-started the engine to facilitate the murder. Judith Chapman, the driver of the blue Ford Fiesta, was found guilty of manslaughter and sentenced to 15 years. Aya Hashim's killers will serve a minimum of 231 years between them.
No sentence can make up for the loss of Aya's life. Most of them will spend most of their life there. My personal view is that in a case like this, certainly Raja, Feroz and Enis should never come out.
It's the most devastating part of cases like this. There's always a bereaved family, and no matter what you say or you do, you're never going to take that pain away.
Once we finally heard what the sentences are, I'm not gonna lie, there was some sense of relief when you hear that this person's gonna be jailed for 34 years. And they're already in their late 20s and 30s. So we say hopefully they're not gonna get out before they're old or dead. So that in a sense did bring us like some relief.
She really an angel. She take care of me, of her dad, brothers, and her sister. Because of our situation, she was the one who stand beside me to help me, to support me. And now I lost her. There is no life. I'm not living. I'm not alive anymore. I'm like only a body without soul. It's very hard to see like young ladies in her age. Some of them, they get married. They are working. They start their own lives. But she's not here.